Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing amazing out there. If you're excited for what I'm going to talk about today, which is the idea of what is a stablecoin in crypto and DeFi and how to look for stablecoins that are safe versus stablecoins that aren't very safe. Oh, let me mute myself. You get double hits from me. Anyway, I wanted to talk today because I had a lot of questions about stablecoins and what stablecoins are safe, what stablecoins aren't safe, how to understand what's good and what's not. Because in 2022, what I'm seeing in DeFi is it's like the game of stablecoins and what I'm calling the stablecoin wars, because we have all sorts of stablecoins coming out and all sorts of different models and variations and stuff everywhere. And you're seeing stablecoins, some get hacked and fail and go to zero. So you really need to be careful where you put your money and where your money goes, because just because it's a stablecoin, and if you don't know what a stablecoin is, what a stablecoin basically is it's a coin that supposed to stay at $1. It's supposed to stay on par with the price of $1. But as the market has fluctuations and as the market goes up and as the market goes down, it puts a lot of pressure on these coins. And sometimes they're not designed well enough. They get exploited or bad things happen to them. And it puts them in a position to where they lose what we call their peg. And the peg is the ability to be pegged to that dollar. And if they lose their peg, they can go above or below. But typically the chaos happens when they go below and they aren't able to push their peg back up. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today, what to look for in good positions, the different types of stablecoins there are and the pros and cons behind that. So that way everyone watching this channel can make an informed decision. Remember, this isn't financial advice. I'm just a guy in a really cool flowery t-shirt here talking to you about DeFi and all the things that happen and what can get you wrecked and what can make you money and what can help you win. But ultimately, it's not financial advice. But anyway, let's talk about the different styles of stablecoins. And then what I'll do is I'll show some examples. So the first one we want to look at are fiat-backed stablecoins. And if you don't know what fiat is, that's like regular money, like US dollars, euros, all that stuff. So that is fiat, just cash money. So fiat-backed stablecoins are essentially backed one coin per $1 or per one whatever. A good example of this one, let's go to my screen. A good example of fiat-backed stablecoins are two of the largest, US dollar tether and US dollar coin. So for every one US dollar tether, it's backed by one US dollar. And for every one US dollar coin, it's backed by one US dollar. These two are both what you would, and same thing with Binance US dollar, and same thing with True US dollar. But the thing about Tether and US dollar coin and Binance that might be a con is they're centralized. So if something happens, Tether can freeze funds. If something happens, US dollar coin, AKA Circle, their parent company, can freeze funds. So it's not necessarily actually decentralized. It's quite centralized in the nature of how the coin operates. These coins tend to be fairly safe because they have that one-to-one peg, so they can always back their coin when market fluctuations happen. You can see in the charts with Tether, it typically only stays at $1. US dollar coin stays right there as well. So these tend to be gold standard. Like, even if you don't like I guess they're gold standard unless you don't like it that they're not decentralized. So you'll find that Tether is a safe haven typically, and so is US dollar coin. If the market's in turmoil, if something happens, those are two of the coins that people can kind of run to and sit in and not have to worry about getting completely wrecked. You can also see that these two have the largest market cap by far of any other stable coin. Terra is coming up close to it, but so those are the two fiat backed. So for every one Tether, it's supposed to be backed by $1. For every one US dollar coin, it's supposed to be backed by $1. For every one true US dollar, it's supposed to be backed by $1. So that means that no matter how hard the market hits it, they can always push it back up because they have the cash flow to continue pulling it back up to finance the market cap of the coin itself. There's some people arguing that Tether's not super clear on whether or not they are backed, but in reality, they've stood the test of time so far. If something were to happen to Tether, it would bring the entire market down likely, because Tether is the most traded stable coin in the entire market. Tether is kind of the backbone. So if something happened to Tether, the whole market would go down. So I tend to think of it as one of those coins that's quote unquote too big to fail because it has such a strong market presence and it's backed one-to-one. So the next one we kind of want to look at is we have algo stablecoins. And so actually, let's go into crypto collateral stablecoins. So when we look at collateralized stablecoins, what happens typically is people will put their money into a debt position. So they'll put their Ethereum into MakerDAO or something. They'll put their Ethereum into a DeFi protocol. And when they put their money in that protocol, they're allowed to borrow stable coins off of that. And what happens is they put more Ethereum than they are borrowing stable coins. And so that creates what we call an over collateralized debt position. And what that means is that stable coin is backed by that collateral. So if someone puts in $3,000 worth of ETH and then borrows 1,000, there's now a buffer between 1 and 3 to be able to support that stable coin. So it's now over collateralized. And what that means is you put yourself into a debt position. The debt that you put yourself into is higher than what you borrow. So that stablecoin you borrow is now over collateralized by the larger amount of debt that you put in to borrow that stablecoin. And so what that does is it's supposed to create a buffer to allow that stablecoin to stay pegged should something happen in the market and your assets get liquidated because you put yourself into a borrowing position, and that gets pulled and pushed back to keep that stablecoin on peg. A good stablecoin, a good example of that stablecoin is DAI. It's essentially the largest one. So this is backed by over collateralized debt. So people put their money into MakerDAO, their money, say they put Ethereum in, they put $3,000 in Ethereum and they pull out and they borrow 1,000. It's now an over collateralized position. Another one that's a lot smaller that does this now is Magic Internet Money has this position as well. They have over collateralized debt positions. DEI does this as well, over collateralized debt positions. DEI is actually interesting because it has like a multifaceted approach, but both of these are examples of over collateralized positions. You can see these stay near peg, but not quite 100% on peg. This isn't the actual number of day, but they stay around like 0.99567-ish for the most part. In terms of that, you look at DAI, it's still in that same area. And a good rule of thumb to kind of judge a good stable coin is, can they stay between 0.9970 up to like 1.003? Then it's probably a pretty good position. So that's kind of what over collateralized stable coins do. It's backed by debt. Now, I'm going to see the downside to these kinds of stable coins is if the market completely plummets and the debt loses a lot of its money, a lot of people can get liquidated. When a lot of people get liquidated, it could potentially lead to a liquidation cascade or like a big black swan event to where the stable coin can no longer collateralize itself, even though it was over collateralized because such a big hit happened to the market, and that can knock it off peg quite heavily. So I think these are stable coins that are fairly safe unless we have a big black swan like the COVID crash and anything like that. I mean, let's look at DAI and see they held pretty well, but we can kind of check out how their pegs held in the past. So this was early on, but when you look at like April, it popped above peg. For the most part, though, DAI holds pretty well. And so you can see, let's see, November, we barely fell off. So they hold fairly strongly in terms of this over collateralized position because it tends to have, it has more debt than the debt that is put into borrow is worth more than the stable coins that are borrowed. So it allows it to stay on peg. So then when we look at the next stable coin that I kind of wanted to check out was algo stable coins, algorithmic stable coins. And so what these look like are, these are stablecoins that basically have an algorithm. So what happens is the algorithm is designed to keep the stablecoin pegged at $1. If the stablecoin comes off of $1 above or below, it's supposed to pull coins out of the market or put coins in the market in order to keep that stable. The problem with algo stablecoins is that algorithm often fails. That algorithm isn't very good long-term at maintaining that peg. The algorithm, when the market really dumps, it's not able to keep it. So the algo-based stablecoins get hit fairly hard. And what you're seeing now on the bigger ones is they're becoming algo plus crypto-backed stablecoins. And so a good example of probably the biggest algo stablecoin is, let's go into stablecoins. So the biggest one is Terra. So for a long time, Terra was an algo stablecoin. So when you look at Terra, it's had the algorithm that kept it at $1. And Terra recognized that they needed to be backed by something at the same time. So what Terra started to do was build up a decentralized reserve of Bitcoin. And the cool thing about that is now it takes Terra from an algo-backed stablecoin to an algo plus crypto-backed stablecoin. And the crypto it's being backed by is Bitcoin. So it's the one that's actually fairly certain to be there long term and the one that they can build the decentralized reserve off of. So I think an algo stablecoin by itself can be quite dangerous in the market because they have a hard time maintaining peg in big black swan events. I mean, even looking at Terra, it's held strong now, and I think it's in a really good position because it's algo backed, plus it's also crypto backed. It has, their goal is to get $10 billion in reserves in Bitcoin. And the reason they're trying to do that is because they want to have a decentralized stablecoin. So like I talked about a minute ago, Terra, US dollar tether and US dollar coin are both centralized because they can be shut down. Terra is 100% decentralized and backed by decentralized assets. So if that's important to you, you get full decentralization from this coin. Nobody can control it. Nobody can do anything to it. The coin is decentralized. So now as we look, lately the price has held quite well. It's near the dollar. Actually, it's been right there ever since, for about more than a year now. We had this one black swan event when we got kind of crushed in last March. So March, what was it? March, and the 22nd, was that May 22nd that we got hit? And that took us down to 0.94. But that was before they were backed by Bitcoin and they had that decentralized reserve. Back here was when they kind of first started. And that's typical of when a coin first starts. But what I judge it as, how has it performed in the last year? When we look at it in the last year, even these little red zones are 0.997, like I talked about, which is a really good zone for the stablecoin to sort of stay in. So that's what's interesting about Terra and the algo stablecoin that it is. So I think what we need to look at with algo stablecoins is if it's just an algo stablecoin, it might be a little bit dangerous, and you probably have to watch that thing because there's a good chance that you could get wrecked and that thing could essentially fall off peg and go way down. But when you have an algo backed stablecoin and it's backed by crypto, I think you put yourself in a really good position to actually be safer, because now if the coin falls off peg, it's not just the algorithm that holds it. They can also sell crypto to push it back up. And so as long as their reserves are near or bigger than their market cap, I think it puts it in a place to be okay and not fall apart. And so when we look at the newest algo backed stablecoin is the Tron one. So it's USDD. It's in here, so I don't even know if I add it, but it's a new one, and it's an algo stablecoin with a decentralized reserve. So I think that's what we're going to start seeing coming from algo stablecoins. We're going to see the stablecoin itself that holds on the algorithm, but we're also going to see these businesses or these crypto companies backing it with decentralized assets. Now, what you have to be careful with these algos that are backed by decentralized reserves is Bitcoin's fine. If they backed with Ethereum, that's probably fine. But if they're backing with like a farm token, their own token, or some random token, that might not be that safe, because say they build a reserve and that farm token or their house token or whatever it is goes down 90%, they're not going to be able to sustain that peg. So I think it's really important to recognize the kind of assets that are being backed by that decentralized reserve and what they are. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, fine. Anything else, I probably wouldn't be super comfortable with. So now let's move into the next one. The next one that I want to look at are partially collateralized stablecoins. And so these basically what a partially collateralized stablecoin is the coin is backed by two different assets. So for example, a good one on this one, let's share our screen, is Frax. Frax is a partially collateralized stablecoin. So Frax is backed by 80% US dollar coin. So usually it's US dollar coin, and 20% of their Frax shares, so FXS. So it's backed by 80% of a legitimate stablecoin and 20% of their own token. And that's similar to the way the burn mechanism with Terra, of how Terra works, and also how Day works. So the interesting thing about these partially collateralized stablecoins are when Frax is minted, they have to burn that FXS token. And so what happens is they take that off the market to essentially bring more Frax out, and that becomes the backing that they need. So they have 20% backing on that token and 80% on US dollar coin. Now, is this safe? So in my opinion, I think this is fairly safe, because what happens is they can back by 80% of the actual of an actual coin, so a US dollar coin or Tether, and 20% by the coin that's essentially their own token. Now, is this as safe as like a decentralized backed Bitcoin base like on US dollar or UST? No, it's not. So you see these coins fluctuate a lot more than you see any of these other regular coins. And as you can see right now, the market's just getting hammered. So the ones that are holding really well are right here. Binance is doing okay. This over collateralized position is doing okay. True is doing okay. So a lot of these coins, you can kind of see how they're holding up. And these partially collateralized stable coins sometimes get hammered when the market gets hit, because they have to come up with their 80% reserve and then their 20% of the other piece, but they're also relying on the algorithm to keep it on peg. So they tend to fluctuate and move a lot more. Now, Frax isn't a bad coin. It typically comes right back and it functions really well. So I don't think it's a problem, but you will find a lot more volatility in these kinds of stable coins. And now what's interesting in the case of like Day is Day or Die. Someone would correct me on this if I keep saying it wrong. But the interesting thing about Day is it's a partially collateralized stablecoin. So it's 80% backed by US dollar coin, 20% backed by their coin Deuce. But they also have an over collateralized debt position in their borrowing platform. So you can, when you borrow on their lending program, you over collateralize. So you say you put in $3,000 in ETH and you can borrow 1,000 Day. And so that allows it to be over collateralized at the same time. So it not only has the ability to be collateralized by 80% US dollar coin and 20% of their coin Deuce, or Deus is how you say that one, but it's also over collateralized and backed by a debt position. So it kind of gives it a double fail safe, which I think is really neat and a really novel concept in terms of where this one can go. I know this says 9867, but they don't list a lot of good ones with liquidity. So let's look at an actual chart on this one and see what it actually looks like right now. So this one's big in the Phantom ecosystem. And I said I like the idea of it, but as you can see, it stays pretty close to peg. Like right now it's 9980. They had a finance issue, but as you can see, they were able to use their fail-safe recently. I guess it was like a hack in one of the lending protocols that they were in, but it moved it down to 9518. And that same day, it pushed all the way right back up to 9956. And so that's a really good example of a stable coin that got pushed way off peg, but immediately sprung right back up and was able to recover rather quickly. And so I think you can attribute that to the idea that they have not just the partially collateralized coin of the Deus with their Deus coin and their US dollar coin. So they have that plus the over collateralized nature of debt, which makes it an interesting play. Now, as these coins are smaller, you have to be careful as well, because they can completely fall off peg and fall apart. But you kind of have to watch and understand what they're actually backed by. So if I was to put into a hierarchy of coins and a hierarchy of what I think is safe, and I did another video previously on tier 1 versus tier 2 stablecoins and how I kind of judge them. If you're interested in that, just comment stablecoins down below and I'll share the video. But what I kind of look at is tier 1 are typically these fiat-backed stablecoins, because it's one-to-one. If it falls off peg, there is a financial ability to push it right back up. I think tier 2 that we're starting to see that are really neat are like Terra US dollar. Actually, I'd probably put this one as a tier 1 because it's been able to grow and become so big. But technically, the very nature of it, I guess, would make it a tier 2. So Terra UST would be the idea of, hey, it's backed by $10 billion in Bitcoin. It's an algo stable coin, but it's backed by this $10 billion in Bitcoin reserve. Now, if this thing fell completely off peg, it has the $18 billion market cap. So that reserve alone might not be enough to save it, but at the same time, it's being able to hold and stay fairly functional this entire time. So I think it's actually really interesting. In my opinion, it's moving from a tier 2 into a tier 1 for me. I actually have a lot. I do a lot in Anchor protocol and all that, so I like it. The other tier 1s, Tether, US dollar coin, you could call Binance US dollar. It's another fiat backed. So for me, I think tier 1 are typically these fiat backed stable coins. Tier 2 for me are these stable coins that are either over collateralized by debt or have a decentralized backing that's either Bitcoin or ETH. And so that falls into like DAI, and the market cap is large, so it does pretty well. And then I think tier 3, or I guess tier 2 at the same time are like Frax. So Frax is like this partially collateralized stablecoin. Those are great. And then for me, tier 3 are like just straight up algo stablecoins. I don't think they function or work that well long term. And I think black swan events will knock them off peg. And I think the other tier 3, or maybe even doesn't get a tier that's really dangerous, is a stablecoin that's backed by some sort of like random farm token asset. So something that's not like the top 10, not Bitcoin, not ETH, because if that loses 90% of its value, you're going to see the thing plummet and go down. Now, with all that being said, let me know if there's any questions. Let me check the comments and see if there's any questions so far. All right, nothing right now. So what do I like? I mean, what coins, stable coins am I playing in? Well, I have positions. I always have Tether and US dollar coins sitting. I have Terra UST. Personally, I also have Day. I have a position in that. So I think that's a great stable coin. I mean, you have to kind of pay attention to these ones because they're smaller. I mean, the market cap isn't even listed on here. It's not that small, but it's small enough to where you kind of have to pay more attention to it because it's still growing. But for me, I think based on where you're at, or what you're thinking about when you're watching this is, do I want to be ultra safe, which is like Tether and US dollar coin, or DAI? Do I want to be mostly safe, which is like, I guess if you want to be ultra safe, yeah, those three. And if you want to be mostly safe, no, I struggle with figuring out where I want to put this one. I would say ultra safe is Tether, US dollar coin, Terra, Binance, DAI, maybe even true US dollar, probably these ones right here. And I like this one because it's backed by fiat. And then if you want to be like kind of safe, but play around for really good yields, then you're probably looking at like Frax, even though Frax is now in the Curve 4 pool, which means it's now paired with US dollar coin, US dollar Tether, DAI, and or not DAI, UST, US Terra, and Frax. So that 4, that's going to make Frax explode. And I think it's going to put Frax in a really good position. But if you want to be mostly safe, but go dip into the degen world and get good yields, you're probably looking at like Frax, you're looking at Magic Internet Money, Mematic, you're looking at Day. So those ones they're a little bit smaller, a little more riskier, but you're going to get a lot better yields in the market for those. Like right now, I think in a position with Day and US dollar coin, I'm getting like 40% APR of 2 stable coins, which is amazing. So something to think about. I hope this was helpful. If you like this video, just comment yes down below and let me know what your number 1 biggest takeaway is, and let me know what your questions are. And if you really like this video, make sure you like and you subscribe, and then you share it with people who could benefit from this and who want to know and learn and understand the concepts of DeFi so you can get in the market and stay safe. All right, I will talk to you all later.